Nurembang, Meringue, Yingyalgi, Yama, Yuindi, Tila, Nadu, Winangnangay, Yinjamar, Marangay, May, Jarinya, Kulanbu, Nurembangabu. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, I'm Tila. I respect the First Peoples to be born to this country, and I honour the Kulin Nations as the peoples of this country. I also acknowledge that we are on their unceded lands and waters. I am a proud Wiradjuri and Wailwan woman from Gilgandra. I'm fortunate to live and work on the unceded lands and waters of the Gadigal and Bidjigal peoples. And I'm joined today by a fiery panel, I think we can say. I'm going to actually get them to introduce themselves so I'm not the one doing all the speaking. So Marinda, I'll start with you.
G'day everyone, I'm Marinda. I'm a Gumbaynggirr Barkindji woman. I live on Yugambeh country and I work on Bundjalung country. I'm the co-founder of Blackfulla Book Club with Tila and I'm also a lawyer by day.
Chelsea?
My turn. So my name is Chelsea Wadigo. I'm Mananjali and South Sea through the Wadigo and Williams family. Born and raised on Yagara country, and home for me is Anala in Brisbane. Yeah.
Thanks, Chelsea and Marinda. And Nadi?
Yeah, Manginda Nadi Naya. Yolroy Waringa Baby Dinga. I'm Nadi Simpson. I'm a Yulroy, Walroy woman. Sango and a totem. I live on Gadigal land in Sydney. And what do? I don't know. I spin stories.
Well, thanks to everyone for showing up today. Just kind of told Chelsea she's probably brought the biggest crowd today, all of her fans with her and Nadi. So we really appreciate everyone for showing up. I think that that's the first step towards action in these spaces, especially when you're standing in solidarity with First Nations and, writing and turning that literature into action. We are so excited as Blackfulla Book Club to be in the presence of these two powerhouses. I'm sure many of you follow our handle as well at Blackfulla Book Club, and these are two amazing storytellers that I think in the past couple of years have really tipped the trajectory of our nation and the narratives about our people. And I think we have a question just to kick us off for both, but I might start with Nadi on the screen, just so that we can bring her into this space. But it's about both your books. Both books are debut books, Another Day in the Colony and Song of the Crocodile. One is fiction, the other is non-fiction. Nadi, with your story, it was so powerfully touching. I remember Marinda and I got, I think it was draft copies. We didn't even have the proper cover of the book, and we read it, and I remember talking about it, and it was one of the books that really brought us to tears. And for so many reasons. Can you just tell us a bit about what was your motivation to write this story?
What was my motivation? There's three different answers. Depends. Sorry, there's a dog scratching on the door here. It's knocking up. No, I've just got to open the door. I apologise.
Oh my God, that's the blackest interview.
I'm sorry. My motivation for writing a book was to get away from stuff like that there. Create a world where beautiful questions and dogs scratching at the next door don't happen. I wanted to, what did I want to do? I thought I was packing away the guitar and retiring gracefully from music because I thought, I'd hit the peak of what I was going to achieve in that. I thought my development was gone and it was more of the same, and I'm a little bit of I need to feel like I'm moving or achieving or whatever that is. And I thought, I'll just retire from singing and I'm going to be author now. And then, of course, when I got to the blank page and I thought, I don't even know how to do this. and beautiful Grace Lucas Pennington, who I'm not sure if she's there. She was my editor along with Caitlin Murphy at Black and White, was helping me through writing this story. And it was hard going, eh? I didn't know what I was doing. It was hard. And I was trying really hard. But I was trying not to be what I was. And then, we got to a point and Grace said, Nadi, what if we said, where's the music in that paragraph? And I thought, I know that language. I know that. And why am I trying to pack it away and leave it behind? It's the only thing I know. And so personally for me, it was another artistic expression. It was sort of like the next part of me finding out how I move in the world, but also this driving thing about, we live in a world where we know a parallel truth. And I wanted, especially the people that I was connected to who didn't get the chance to, sing that out on the stage. I wanted to put that in writing and have it there as not an archive in a mainstream sense, but to pen the way we move in the world, or how I understand we do, or Simpsons or whatever, and have it there as a what? I don't know. I want to say a street sign. You want to know? Read our fiction, read our poetry, read our non-fiction. That's how we get around the way we do. And it's up to you to come to that space and sit down and listen. Big long yarn to say, I don't know why I was driven to do it, and I went with the flow.
And I just think, just leading from that though, kind of what you've said is about the physical act of putting the pen to paper, but I kind of want to dig a little bit more. I want you to tell us, so this is a saga, as some people have described the book. It's about different generations. It's based in a town called Dunmore. So much of what you were saying, northwestern New South Wales. I'm from a community in Western New South Wales, and I want to know why you felt that story was important to tell, and how long, had you been crystallising this story, which is so much about colonisation, but also, black love in the end. So tell us the story itself, not just the act of pen to paper.
What's the, it's hard up here. There's lots of blackfellas in the audience, eh? And non-Indigenous people there?
Blackfellas, put your hands up.
Where's that?
Whitefellas, put your hands up. Yeah, we got more whitefellas in the room, sis.
Oh, okay. No, because it's different yarn, and
yeah, it is.
The answer I want to give to you is different to the answer I want to be on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because it's different to the yarn. There was how can I go about this? Event that happened in our community a long time ago that sparked a lot of no good business, and the way that it came out to the world was one story. What happened to get to that point was another, and it was a long story of generations of people. And I knew and was connected to the buried story, the hidden story, and there was a drive in me to want to have that said. Then there are really interesting yarns about, well, what are you going writing a book for some unknown people and having it on shelves, and what good is, why are you having that yarn in that way? I can't tell you. Well, anyway, I wish I was there.
Yeah,
I could tell
thank
you,
you.
lots of
No,
different things that went
yeah,
into that. And the
absolutely.
reason why I did was to have some kind of whatever signpost of the way life is in Margaret and the way it was for my father's generation, my grandmother's, but the way it was for somebody who was my age growing up there. Because that could have, the things that I had should have been for everybody else, and it wasn't that way. So that's why I wrote that story about this ongoing pressure that generations of people have found themselves in. And, I wanted non-Indigenous people to have to get connected to a character and then be knocked down. And then them get up and then be knocked down again and knocked down. I wanted people to feel that in their bodies. I wanted them to read it so they knew that shit is what a lot of our people carry around. And then I wanted that story, not of resilience, I'm a little bit like resilience, how Chelsea is with hope, because
Fuck it.
yeah, hey, like resilience. Oh, do you take a knockdown well? You are wonderful at being hit. No, we don't want the fight. No. So I wanted somehow all that stuff, Tila, that I could do and that I didn't know and that I wanted to do to be sort of, I don't know, tingling on a page and to put it out there and say, there, you want to know, you want to feel something, read that there and go away and think about it, because that's our life.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Thank you so much, sis, for sharing that. Chelsea, so much of what Nadi said has so many synergies, particularly when she called out who's in the room, who's the audience. And your debut book, Another Day in the Colony, you have been so adamant that this is not for white fellas. You haven't written it for them. Can you tell us the motivation behind that amazing collection of essays?
So to the white people, you can read the book. You don't have to send me an email to apologise for being white for reading the book. So I'm just saying, just because I'm not of service to you doesn't mean you can't read it. It's just we're not catering to you. And there's parts of the yarn where you might get, and what you're meant to get, you will get. So when I say I wrote this for blackfellas, when we speak to each other, we're not, our power is in ourselves. We don't have to demonstrate our power by exercising over someone else, right? So when I say I'm running for blackfellas, that doesn't mean I'm visiting violence upon whitefellas. I'm just being of service to my people first and foremost. That's... Yeah. So just to clear that up.
I think as well, though, Chelsea, it doesn't have any care for white sensibilities or guilt. You are just standing in your power and in your words and in your sovereignty, and there is no care for how white people might feel about it, really.
But the fragility in the place as well, the fact you had to open up your answer with that. There's clearly so much white fragility we're dealing with every day. And what we have witnessed behind Blackfulla Book Club is you just starting this conversation in our black communities that is actually so much about love as well, and
Absolutely.
And us being sovereign.
I mean, my first year at university, I just turned 17, and that's when I found out that we were like a sick people, that we were inferior, because I didn't know us as that. And I encountered the violence of the texts, academic, objective, impartial texts that claim to know about us. And I was so fortunate, my undergrad was with a black cohort, and so I sat with senior people who, because I was just a bub, but I got to watch them contest the racialised knowledge that was being, they tried to inscribe in our bodies, right? And so I got to watch these fellas no, that's not it. And I knew that in home, we had that criticality at home, where me and Dad would argue at the kitchen table or the newspaper, and he encouraged that because he knew the violence of that place when we stepped outside. So we had training to hold our own. And so I was just so fortunate to learn with senior blackfellas in a white institution And these courses, they call them like these boutique courses for like those that just can't do mainstream. That we need these black learning spaces to develop this criticality.
But you say in your book as well, it's about, you know, our dinner tables are our intellectual spaces. Like, this is where we're having the yarns. This is the intellectual debates. Tell us how your family created that space. Like, obviously, your dad was so powerful
Bless.
You know, kind of giving you the kind of doorway to do what you're doing now.
Yeah, like I just, and we grew up, we had to know our place. In different kind of way, not like to be subordinate, but know our place relationally. And so as kids, we couldn't like be cheeky to dad, but at the kitchen table, we could play. Test out ideas, but I'm the baby of the family. I'm the youngest of 4, and everyone would clear the kitchen because me and Dad would go at it. And I just love that he gave me that training ground, because you know we grew up in a house where it's like, never bow your head. Never think you're less than. And so when I ventured out and go to university as the first in family and stuff, and I'm encountering these texts, I'm like, I didn't know myself in the way that they had framed us. And I was always like curious about this disjuncture, the same way my white mother and black father would navigate the world, and these texts. And I think for some of our mob that come through these places and they encounter the text, they then internalise it and think that there's something lacking about their Aboriginality. And no, it's something violent about the colonial construction of it.
And it's still happening. You explain
Every day
in your essay about how your children are coming home with the tasks about the coloniser knowing
role-playing being a pastoralist and the pros and cons of the Marba decision. Like last year, this is our post-Black Lives Matter moment, and we're going to test like the intellectual abilities of black kids in being able to theorise, empathise with the pastoralists. And so the one thing I love about the work that I do is how I put those tools to work when I go to the principal's office and call them out.
Yeah.
And I laugh because my husband, my children's father, he's very quiet, bless. And I still remember... Well, you had to be. You got no choice. Sorry about it. But we went up last year because their bodies misidentified in all kinds of ways. All kinds of ways. And so we went up to the school and I went for it. And we walked out and he reckoned, you know, you go off. This was the first time I wasn't ashamed about you going off. Good ways. But, you know, like...
Good ways.
And then when I come home and I'm telling them, like, and then I said, and then they said. And so, you know, the learning comes at the kitchen table, but does it come back to your home, your intellectual labour?
Yep.
Like, are our own children the beneficiaries of what we do? Because no good saving community if it's not at home.
Yeah.
And so it's in those moments where I'm like, fuck the H index. My kid can get up in assembly at 16 and say, I know who I am, I know where I stand. Like, that's a test of our work.
Yeah. And it sounds, to me, it reminds me, obviously your advice you're giving to your children is also reflected in another essay of yours in the book towards the end, when you are, you're walking into the pre-conciliation race discrimination matter.
Which one?
With the first one, the pre-one, and you're up against, you say, 3 senior white men. And it's the act of the remembering and knowing who you are. Can you explain that? Because actually, I know, not to say that this is about any of us, but even in our workforce, it does come back to that innate power of just remembering, fuck these.
Who the fuck you are in those moments.
Yeah.
I was so fortunate. I had my brother countryman, Dr. Derek Chong, deadly Aboriginal psychiatrist who's journeyed with us on all the stuff we've been through. And he's busy, and he turned up to be my support person. And he came in his suit, and we walked in, and he was like, so which is our room? And he like repositioned the room.
Oh. Yeah.
And he goes, no, they're going to walk into our room. And then he saw the big window, he goes, we're sitting in front of that window. And they were violent. The things they said about me and how they rationalised what they did to me, it was violent, but I was there with my brother. And afterwards, we went to a nice lunch, had a fancy feed, and we laughed. And this is the thing, like, in those powerless moments, we got to let our mob hold us. And like, it was so beautiful. I had, for the QPS one, I had Kevin Yayi, and we were there, and we could like laugh at these fellas, even though we know by design the whole thing is meant for us not to succeed.
Yeah.
but like just to stand in it.
And so much of just standing in that power, knowing that there are so many more behind you, or, you know, the spiritual world, I think, Nadi, it links so much into your book, which was, it was one of the first texts actually that I'd read, where we've got this black woman telling this really powerful story, and you're showing to the world this amazing layer of our lives, that power that Chelsea talks about behind us. You have given such a gift to the reader, I think, through your storytelling about the ancestral realm and the ancestors. Can you explain to us why that was important to you to put into this book?
I don't know. I don't know if you could tell. Well, you could. I was going to say, I don't know if you can tell a rounded story without it. I mean, there's a funny thing when we start to talk about ancestry and, you know, our old people, and people think that they're gone. But just because they're not here doesn't mean they're gone. And actually, for us, a lot of the time, if they're not here, they're even more powerful than when they were, you know? Those, oh, what is that? Anyway, I want to think about that, but
There's a real, I think, Nadia, sense of timelessness in the way that you share that story, as in it was before time, but it is still now.
yeah. Well, and that's why, you know, it's sort of the narrative is over such a long period because, you know, how do I say this? The effects of time. Yeah. The effects of that drawing out, let's say, or moments, having that sort of, having a long string of moments. It has this energy to it. And so, you know, you might be talking about great-great-grandmother, but she is active in your life right now. And if you've got a kid, she's active in your kid's life, and that's just how it is, you know. That's the base level. Other people call it, you know, ancestral knowledge, but I think that, and also speculative fiction. That's a good one. What do you call it? Magical realism. You know, all that. It's actually black moments of life, and to me, it's the context for why people do things. Yeah.
I really want to talk to both of you about a theme that I think is threaded throughout both of your books, and even though you're both writing from different spaces and in different genres, I think both of you really speak from a specific place and also speak to place. Chelsea, I think in your book you really, I mean, you address that point specifically, but you also do something really beautiful in the scenes that you include about Anala. And I don't think I've ever read such beautiful writing about Anala, or even any stories about Anala, to be honest.
We're
like
Anala people here.
You know, I think it's in some ways invisible, those stories. And similarly, Nadi, you speak about your Wallaray country in a really evocative and vibrant way. And I think that's something that you both do so eloquently. I wondered if you could talk to us about what it means to write from a place and to a place. Nadi?
The beautiful thing, Marinda, about this is that, you know, this answer, if we had the same yarn in another 5 years, will be different because it's an ongoing, unfolding relationship. And, you know, when I read, you know, and I thought, oh, these fellas, you know, sometimes they do a little quote in the front and then they dedicate it to someone. I thought, I'm going to do that. And then I dedicated that story to my Wurrumba because I wanted it to know me. And I wanted it to know that I think about it all the time. And those words are written to give it meaning to me and my body and my history and my family. And for it to know me, you know. It's not a one-way yarn. I think that's the important thing for me. You know, I'm a kindergartner compared to our old knowledge people, but I'm somewhere on the learning scale, and that's where I want to place myself, in deference to those places and their learnings. And you know, I can honestly say that I'm willing in a creative life to let that lead me. I'm lucky I can indulge in a creative life, and I'm saying, come on now, you know, can I go into year one now? That'll be good. That's what I want to do, to say, to tell that place, because especially because I live in Sydney, that I think about you all the time. And actually when I write or maybe sing, I can be there. So let's keep that yarn, communication, that connection going. And I'm willing, you know.
That's beautiful. Chelsea?
So, as a black woman and an academic, it's always presumed that the place in which you write from is one of emotion. Like, never impartial, objective, authoritative, but it's always from this place of emotion, like we cannot control our feelings. And I'm here to speak in defence of black women's right to feel every human emotion. Anger, rage, joy, like, I'm going to claim it all. Like, we feel it all. So I had, like, in this process, because I was like, I had to take leave and process some stuff, and I did write from a place of emotion and in a place at home, and I learned to type through the tears. Like, so I'm going to own that place, conscious that they're always going to, like, put our intellectual work into another category. Like, never non-fiction. Never. We can never know. Like, it's an opinion piece. And so I had to get over that part, because now, as blackfellas, we write from place. Like, I had to write from my own stories, not what some academics said in some journal. I had to speak from experience, and not to claim that and possess it and weaponise it against those who don't have it, but to explain my relationship to the knowledge that I was producing, because that's our way. And I do it to say, look, there's mob that will tell the story of the colony that's different to mine because they come from a different place. And, like, we can coexist because we're relational people. And so I really struggled as a blackfella coming to the academy, where knowledge is what they use to possess, claim, exercise violence. And I had to, like, remember, you know, when we yarn with mob, we're like, well, I'm going to tell the story because this is where it comes from for me, but yours is different. And that's okay. And so I struggle with the fact that in the academy, people, like, want to be experts and knowers. And I love that my day job is I get to think out loud in a moment. And a year or two time, there's some things I don't like about the book already. I'm just going to say it. Because that was me thinking in that moment, in that place. And it will change. Like, you know, we don't have to, like, possess it, claim it, and protect it. Like, it's like, oh no, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong, okay. But that's where I was at that moment.
And you have an...
I wasn't wrong, no. Sorry.
That's a new book title.
I said what I said.
You have an essay, when you were speaking, it reminded me of this essay, which is The Price We Pay, like black women, black people. And you grapple with this race and racism, and you speak to the issue of, you know, how we are consistently strategizing in this place, like, and we are, like, and white fellas don't see this, right? Like, walking out the door every day in the colony is a fucking battlefield.
Absolutely.
And people who live with white privilege don't really get to experience or see that. Can you tell me why that was... It's one of my favourite pieces of your essays, but this idea of looking through the lens of the world through race and strategizing, and why it's important for our mob.
Because it's part of the air that we breathe every day. Like, you know, just 2 weeks ago in Ghana, being laying on a cement floor in a watch house after doing a race lecture, right? to the Academy of Social Science and testing out a rights-based approach. And so I'm laying there for 5 hours and I'm going, okay, so what are you learning about power in this moment? What are you learning? You know, and so, like, this is the violence in this place. It's every day, everywhere. And so there's this thing, I was talking to someone about pop psychology stuff about, like, don't try and intellectualise your trauma. What do we do with it then? What do we do with it? Like, I write to make sense of this place. Like, to process it and to think about it, and that's my therapy. Like, I want to understand it, and also want to then share and go, well, this is what I learned from this, so that I don't want my kids to have to go through the same learning.
And similarly, Nadi, you have, you know, so eloquently expressed this notion of, I think, racism in this place. And hopefully when white people do open up this book, they see it there in plain sight through this narrative that you've told, particularly about people in power and men in power, and I think their entitlement to black women's bodies and things like that. And I want you to, if you can, to this audience, unpack that a bit for us, how you layered that in this saga story, the racism, the power battles that we're having here, the strategizing.
How did I do that? How do you talk about it? How do you relive it? Even if it's a story, which, by the way, it isn't, you know? And, you know, I don't know, maybe it takes all your effort to do it at that time, and then the rest is trying to tread water, you know. But I mean, a way that I could find a strength to have that on a page for a reason, for me, it's just me, was to link that very real no good business that is part of my family story, you know. And well, there's some word and have that weave into a story about how women in Uluru and Uluru country are the bosses, you know. The real stories, you know, were the bosses. That bad business makes those things even more tragic, because the end of the book, and I mentioned it yesterday, is the beginning of a dreaming story where the creators' wives made the most beautiful inland lake we have, that is a place of sharing, a place of communion, a place of trade, a place of ceremony, of song, dance, all those beautiful things, a place of generosity. And so to have that heavy stone feeling of that, you know, no good business. The antidote to having that there is to frame women in our community as they are, which are the creators of the most beautiful things. So that's a way that I got through to it. I think also, and I think a lot about this too, because, you know, I'm a performer, and in my family, what we do is make people feel good. You know, we create that moment for people to enjoy themselves. This is our family sort of history, and that's kind of my training. How do I make everyone feel good so they can go and do what it is they want? And just doing that only becomes problematic, because you can't say hard things or true things. So the process of writing that violence against black women was difficult for me. And one way that was a truth that I don't naturally do. I had to have the context of the ancestry or what we were talking about before, the context of what makes us us as the finish line for that character, but also as the beginning point, the transition point from the last page of the book. What's a book? Sits on a thing. That links it to something far greater. And in that way, for me, telling that hard business and framing that woman not as that broken, sorry, lost soul, but she is every ULRI woman, because every ULRI woman is a creator. Well, that's what I want to do. Link those two things,
And can I say, we're entering into a tradition that has been set. It's the life writings of Auntie Ruth Hegarty, Auntie Leslie Williams, Dr. Jackie Huggins. They told their stories and the violence of the archives in their encounter and shared with us that and gifted us with that. So this is just our time, our turn, to then tell that story, but we're following a tradition of ones who have told these stories, and we owe it to our children, our children's children, to tell our stories. Yeah. And it's the strength that our people get from hearing our stories on whatever terms they are, whether it's sad, happy, whatever. But they know who they are because it's our account of who we are, not theirs.
And that is so powerful, isn't it? It's our account of who we are and not their account. And we see it often, in the profession we work, it's often other people giving evidence about us and their knowing of us in, the legal world, for example. What I want to end on, though, before we kind of get to questioning, and please take all the time you can, both of you, I want to ask you a question, Chelsea, because your book has not only engaged conversations, it has caused some controversy.
No, true.
Especially your essay, Fuck Hope, Be Sovereign. We're hearing different things about this essay.
People are subtweeting about it.
Yeah. So
hashtag run straight though.
Can you tell us what this is? Because Maroon and I had a little chat this morning about the debates happening, and we both had resolved to be like, yeah, fuck hope. Black women don't have to have it in the colony, and for people to expect that from us. Can you tell us, when you were writing it, what you meant by that?
Fuck hope. Look, I get that some people need hope, and that's okay. If you need it, take it. It's all good. But I've just seen too many blackfellas brutalised by the betrayal of hope. And also, if you know your power, you're not waiting for someone to give it to you, because you know it. I could walk from a race discrimination case, which I would have won, but I walked, and I won because I knew my power. I remember who the fuck I was. I didn't need the validation of their verdict to somehow because I grew up in the 90s where we had all the black people on TV were the US civil rights movies, and it always ends with the verdict. Yeah. And justice prevails, and they win, and suddenly all's resolved. That's not how life works. This is not how the colony works. I mean, look what happened Friday. That's justice, right? How do you say oh no, have hope though? From what? And what we've seen the evidence that's coming out now. Yeah. Fuck hope. Fuck hope. And it doesn't mean that we're lying at home crying and not fighting. I'm turning up, but I'm turning up with a different strategy. That does not vest all of my energy in somehow settlers recognising our humanity. Because they're never going to. We made a fairly compelling argument for the last 200 plus years. Yeah. We became scholars and academics. We did strength-based approach, this is who we are and this is our culture. They know who the fuck we are, but their existence is predicated upon us not existing. So fuck hope. End of my TED talk.
I think as well, though, I've heard you talk about this before as well, and that what you're not actually saying is that things are hopeless for us.
No blackfellas hope. Like, when we say fuck hope, it's like, and it's not a giving up. It's knowing your power, and just the thing that I have to we all deal with on the daily, right? Is we know the violence is place, and we've got to work out where's my labour best spent all the time. And so fuck hope is going, this will help guide you where your labour should be spent. Right. You don't need to be the educator. You don't need to do the reconciliation action plan committee. That's for them fellas. Because it's violent, and so it's to inform the strategy for action, for resistance, for fighting. And the thing that when I gave up on hope, just gave up on it. What we build with each other for each other is far more powerful than any breadcrumbs they give us if they acknowledge us, right? Like the power of black media, black intellectual collectives, black NGOs, we just do it on our terms. And so we give our best labour to the people who mean the most to us.
I think as well, it's exciting to imagine what our futures are if we're not bound up in what the colonisers expect or imagine for us, that the imagining can be black.
Yeah, and so my chapter 7 that wasn't written is fuck progress. The discourse of progress is a myth in a settler colonial state. It's a lie. And it's not to me, and that's no disrespect, we haven't made changes and we haven't done some stuff. So it's no disrespect. But in a settler colonial state for blackfellas, our job is to hold the front line. And there won't be progress, but there's a power in holding the front line. Mara Johnson is fighting Adani, and she says, I don't want to be the broken link in the chain. And there's a power and beauty in being still here. We put on outside, still here, to stand still. We don't need their progress. We don't need it. And so mob sometimes buy into this idea that we've got to advance, enter the middle class. We've got to, first of their tribe types. Yeah. No, just be black and think about the rest of the tribe.
Yeah. And in each of your books, there is one other element that has really stood out to me, which is, and I'm going to go there before we end, but it's the white woman as an observer in our spaces. And it's told through Nadi's story, having had her main characters work for a particular family and the violence about it. And you speak to it, Chelsea, in one of your essays about a particular non-Indigenous lawyer writing to the issues.
Always well-intentioned.
Yeah.
I got that this week.
Let's end.
She was well-intentioned, though.
Yeah. And how do we kind of turn that mirror on them to go, are the colonisers ever going to realise?
No.
Okay. Do you want to
unpack?
Do you want to? No, I guess
what
I'm trying to raise is because we see it every day. The well-intentioned white woman, and I've seen it in both your books. The characters or the real life person is there, and the violence that portrays to us as black people. Writing not from a place that we write from, but from an observer point of view.
And it's not. It's a violent position, right? But they get, because white women are the epitome of what is to be feminine and virtuous, and so they're always innocent, even when they're stealing our kids, even when they're have animalistic depictions of the kids that they're supposed to defend, but they're virtuous. And only look at last week. How good was International Women's Day for black women? How good was that, right? And again, we follow the tradition of Professor Larissa Brent, Dr. Jackie Huggins, Professor Morton Robinson, who have spoken about the violence of white women. And when you do, then you're pathologised as the aggressor.
Yeah.
Like you're attacking them. This week I got lectured that this one was well-intentioned. I'm like,
Right.
I'm not attacking her. I'm speaking to a genre
Yeah.
that is violent for us.
That's kind of where I was trying to go with my poor question. But yeah,
Did I get there?
you got there. Nadi, did you want to add to that, or shall we go to the floor for questions?
I think listening and reflecting on what's being said here today, and where you come from, where you're coming from is, our conversations are necessarily had in different ways. And if we're looking to non-Indigenous white women to give us the platform, it's probably a platform that they're usually on, and we can do it our way, with each other, ourselves.
Well, thank you both. We hopefully now we're going to go to some questions from the floor, because I'm sure both Nadi and Chelsea have inspired some thought-provoking topics. So hands up if you have a question or a comment even that we can... No, you've silenced them. My gosh.
No questions? Oh, there we go.
Sorry. Yeah, thanks. It's amazing to hear you all speak. And I have to acknowledge, when I was at uni and chose a topic that was about racist poetry, I was the white observer and didn't realise the trust I had to gain before going down that track. And but it is heavy, we have to decolonise ourselves. We've been raised in this society, and so few opportunities to question that until perhaps it's happening now. I don't know, it depends on school, I don't know, whatever the environment is, family, friends. So, but thank you for saying it. Yeah, that's my comment.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, when you're talking about knowing where you're coming from and things like that, in my own experience with my family, my grandmother being stolen, and I suppose so many gaps in our stories, our lineages, and even imagining how I can put those stories together to be able to create a foundation for myself. Sometimes it feels quite fragmented, even though I know that my ancestors and my grandmothers are here by my side. But I think it still feels quite like there are so many chasms and gaps, and I was wondering if any of yous could speak to how yous have kind of journeyed towards creating foundations where colonialism has created so many fractures.
Chelsea, did you want to? Oh, do you want me to shoot to Nadi?
Where Nadi going?
I'm looking this time.
Yeah, actually, that might be given your story, Nadi, we just had a question from the floor, just in summary, was about how do we, I guess, create, even in the history of where there might be stolen generations or a gap in our remembering of our stories, how do you find the foundation then in that remembering, but then also telling the story?
Look, what do I know? The gap is a story.
Hey.
There's things either side that we want and we aspire to, and that are important to us. The gap is a story, and it's a hard one to write. It's a hard one to live, but that's where we are. And I hope to think that even though I come from, Oh, my blood is in an old, an old river and a star, and all that stuff. Where I am as a Uluru person living on beautiful country with a dog scratching at the door and isolation in COVID, not being in a room that I want to be with amazing black women who are talking about how to be strong in themselves is the story. You know, I can make up something to place me where I'm not. But I think the gap, and I experience that gap. That's all I know, and that's all I can share. And if you talk about either side, it's easy to sound gammon,
Right. I think she answered that.
But this is dispossession, right? That we could subscribe to the idea that our story is incomplete. That it's not just less than but lost. And it's not. And like, we stand in our story. And that's why I can't do decolonisation. Because they're not going home, so how do we decolonise when they're still here? And they're still reproducing these violent tales about us. So our kids then come to question their identity. Like, what? Like, I'm sorry, but whose identity is confused here? It's not ours. And so, yeah, and that's the power of the sovereign storyteller, right? Because we're going to claim our stories back like our land. And what it does for everybody else to see, then you tell that story, and they can see themselves. And that's why in that auntie, that's our sister now at Anala, when we showed the story about that documentary, and she said, I know that's Anala, I know that's a civic centre, but I've never seen us look like this before. That's what we do this stuff for, is to show our people how fucking beautiful we are. However incomplete the Aborigine may be.
I think. We probably have time for one or two more questions.
Oh, there's one.
Hello. Okay, it's working. I just wanted to really thank the panel, my question is around. Well, I'm neither black or white. I'm a migrant to this land. I came when I was a child, and I'm always thinking about as someone who has that migrant culture, and also my land was also previously colonized for 400 years by many European powers. But just thinking about how I can be an ally, and I've started with educating myself. But I would like to ask the panel, how would you like migrant communities like myself and my communities to be allies for you?
Chelsea?
Thank you, and thank you for reading and thinking about that. Because race is hierarchical, right? And there's a racial order. And Blackfulla, we're always on the bottom, as it turns out, for some reason. And sometimes people come to this place in the hope of a better life. And in that, then are all too happy to step on Blackfullas to just be on one rung higher. And so it's, to think about what it is to be in solidarity. And sometimes I feel betrayed by settlers of colour, just in the mundane moments and these things, because the aspiring to the proximity to whiteness. And we're not on the bottom of the racial order because we're like deviant, dysfunctional, and we don't know how to live in this place. But people buy into that. They come here and they accept the settlers' accounts of us. So to be in solidarity is to also refuse the settlers' accounts of us and stand with us on it. I mean, we don't need it, but you'll be all the better for it.
Some people change history to suit themselves through telling stories. I'd just like to know what you would like me to take away from today. Just a thought from each one of you.
Yeah, we'll start with Nadi. Thank you.
Well, that's up to you. That's you're in the room. There's been a lot of wonderful things to think about. That's your business, like I say, with respect and love.
Good ways.
That's your business. And as Chelsea's saying, it's beautiful that people are here and we're all among our big ears and listening, because that's hard. I've got to learn to listen better. But go and do your business. Do you understand the way I'm trying to say that in a nice way? You know what I mean?
Good ways.
Good way.
Because I wouldn't like someone, maybe I might ask, how can I be better, or how can I think better, or how, but, I think the generous way is to say, go and do it,
Chelsea, a takeaway from today?
Just in to respond to the question, like I'm curious about what you write in the thinking from this. Like I want to know, like, what did it do, and what do we need to better, and like what's the kind of conversation that we have with each other, in terms of the space we create when we speak in these places about our stories. So yeah, I'm more, yeah, because we're not claiming a position of knowing.
No.
Like we're thinking out loud. In this time, we're sharing some stories in moments, and black fellas knowing is not the possessive kind of knowing that white fellas operate on every day in this place. So when you're like, well, I can't tell you because that's not my place. We're relational people, so we can't do that. I still remember Uncle Shane Coggle when he read through the book, and there was all these coffee stains, and it was worn, and he grappled with it, and he's an original Nala boy. He's old school, right? And he read the book, and he had some laughs, and he yarned with me, and I said, so is it right? And he said, it's your story. I can't tell you. That's your story.
Yeah, powerful. I think we have one more question.
Firstly, thank you very much, everybody, for facilitating this conversation, and Nadi and Chelsea for bringing such beautiful perspectives into the world. As a white woman who loved every minute, although it was very uncomfortable, I say just thank you, and your mission is succeeding. So Chelsea, I have blown up your inbox on Instagram when I was reading this book in January.
That was on my social media hiatus, I think, as well. I took some time out.
So thank you for generously responding to all of that. But I was very invested in your actual story, being a mum of 5, and with the relationship with your ex-husband, who today you said was
we're still legally married. She's still my husband.
You're still your husband. So
He's my best friend. He's still my best friend.
Okay, so that's my question. So at the end of the book, you're at a new university and setting up a new department, I think. And I was just wondering, how's it all going? Is anything changing? And I hope you're well.
Oh, thank you. Bless. Hey, bless. This year's a lot better than last year. Last year was really violent in ways that people don't know, in terms of what my body went through, even after having written it. And this year is different, but I would never get too comfortable to believe that I've reached a mountaintop moment. This is just a season. And so never get carried away. People are still coming for me anyway, all the time. So I never want to get too arrogant to believe that, oh, well, now you're this, this and this. You're right. Because all it's done is made a bigger target on my back. In ways that people, they might see you and think they know you and can speak about who you are, but they don't know the day job, the daily grind. They don't know it. And that's okay, because I don't need them to know it, because I know who I am. But I think when black women reach these moments of supposed success, it's more dangerous than what it was when I was at the margins.
Yeah. And that's such an important point to end on, I think, knowing the amazing contributions both women, black women, have given to this space and this colony, the remembering and reminder that it's still very violent, even when you make it. So to each of you as well for showing up and to holding this space. And Marinda, thank you, Chelsea, for being here in person. Nadi, we wish you well on Gadigal country and your dog.
We wish you were here, Nadi.
Hey, sing us a song.
On the way out.
In the room, I wish I was in the room.
All right, thank you. So that's it. Time's up.
Hey, right outside.